How to Trade Back to Basics series, Pro versus Novice Gaps. Let's go. This is Dan Max at eXp Realty, aka the Trading Agent, with the daily stock, Bitcoin, gold, and silver market recaps. Please check out the Discord room. Link is in the description. This is Dan Max at eXp Realty, aka the Trading Agent, with a little back to basics about Pro and Novice Gaps. What are they? What do they mean? Where can you find them on charts? And just the whole kit and caboodle about it, because professional versus novice gaps are a really interesting topic because they're not always easy to spot, but they're definitely like types. They definitely need to be on your radar and something that you're aware of. So just let me start off the weekend recaps in Discord and all the different rooms and all the stuff that's going on. I hope people are checking this stuff out because I am constantly just adding stuff to this for resources for new people. So if you're trying to learn how to trade, all the back to basics are on the Discord room and the channel. So let's get into it. Pro versus novice gaps. Oops, I needed a reference. I consider pro gaps that are change in the direction and very early in a trend, and they typically happen because the pros are getting into the market in these positions. Like a pro gap would be pros are selling here. A novice gap is a gap that's kind of right before the trend changes direction, and so keep in mind what that means. So professionals means the move is starting, and this is like the first big gap, and they realize like, oh snap, like this move is going, we don't care about the price action anymore, we're trying to get it to move in this direction. And this novice gap is more of a trap. It's a trap that you would short this knowing that the market's about to rally higher, and there we go, now you can see it. So pro gap, beginning of the move down. Novice gap, end of the move turning the other way. Here's another what I'd consider novice gap. You gap down before you started going up. Here's another novice gap, chop and chop. So I hope that makes sense. Let's roll into charts because I think nothing makes sense without seeing live examples. Good old gold. There's one of the miners that I like. I think this is a professional gap. You can see it here. Oh, I apologize. Let me open it up. That was a pro gap, went down. Now here's starting the pro gap of the move up. You can see it in silver. I think these are a little easier to see maybe. Here's a bunch of novice gaps. Boom, gap up and go. And I know people will be like, oh, it's a commodity, it's closed after hours. Okay, fine. Let's pull up the GDX because, I'm all about gold and silver, know what's going on. You closed here, open there, ripped higher. I consider that a professional gap. Professional gap. Novice gap. Again, keep in mind where they are. I like to see, because this is what's hard. Could this be a novice or a professional? I don't know. I like to see what I think is going to be the extremes, because that's when you can really zoom in and go, okay, I think that's the beginning of the move. So here's again a professional gap. Novice gap, after it's already up. So just again, keep it in mind. Keep it really simple. At the beginning of a move and a possible turnaround, that's a professional gap, because the pros are going to run that price up. A novice gap, again, is a gap right before the trend actually changes, and it's a confusing kind of thing where retail is probably buying the GDX, these gap ups, and they're just unloading them, and then next thing down here they're people are selling, and it's like, well, that's the novice gap we're about to reverse. So there's a lot of stocks that I'm following that, especially in the minor section, where I think the pro gaps are going to be, hence why I'm kind of focused on them. KL, chop, professional gap. I think we should be going higher. Let's just pull up any of these. AG, professional gap. After the big move down, professional gap. You can see this everywhere when you look at certain things and you look hard enough. You can pull up any chart. So let's just get to a chart that maybe everybody knows. Everyone watches Tesla. That's a professional gap there. That's a novice gap. Again, at this point, those gaps, maybe you're not sure, but when you start looking back on them, you start seeing, okay, well, maybe those, there are gaps, again, in between chart moves. But big gap, then this day with big volume. Now you should be worried, right? That's at the highs. Let's pull up, say, like something like Apple, because maybe you can see some of the examples of professional gaps that are harder to see. Yeah, again, it's not an all or nothing kind of thing. Again, here you go. Here's a novice gap, and then it just chops out. It's not a continuation gap. I like to see professional gaps. Okay, here you go. Novice gap, professional gap, and starts going. They're harder to recognize when there's no volume with them. And so here's, expanding a volume. Here's a professional gap. You gap down, and then it ultimately led to more price destruction. Retail or a professional gap starts the up move. You just have to be aware of gaps because they typically can get filled, but they also will show you power. Here's a retail, a pro gap. It gaps down and it just kept going. Just again, keep in mind pro gaps, continuation moves, novice gaps, end of moves, potential, the inflection points. Here's a nice pro gap. Here you go, nice on volume. Like this is one that you could have traded and been 100% sure that it was going higher. You gapped up, big volume. And again, gaps with volume are much easier to identify pro and novice gaps. When you don't have a ton of volume, you don't know. Like, see this gap up? Like, that would be confusing. Inflection point? Yeah. Now you can look back on this channel high, but that should have been a red flag that you might be in for some down. But the volume wasn't terribly huge, but the price action, that big candle, that's the thing. So we'll get into more of that, but different candle shapes and formations, and because that's a lot of this stuff, if you start noticing, you'll notice like at tops and bottoms, you just have like smaller candles with bigger volume, or sometimes it's just seasonal. And that's what I think people like. You look at August and people go, why would Apple tank in August? Well, tech usually has a weak August and September. Well, look at what happened. August and September, and it bottomed in October, and then it started its run up. We'll get into seasonality stuff. I've got plenty of charts on that, but I hope this helps. Again, pro gap, the start of a big move. Novice gap, a gap that brings in what you would consider the novices and the retail folks to get in before a move is about to flip the other way. All right, well, check out the weekend recaps, back to basics. There's tons of information. Come by the Discord room. I appreciate everybody, and I will talk to you all. For more trading knowledge and insight, click on the video links to the right. I appreciate you stopping by. Please subscribe, like, and share with your friends. And if you haven't joined the Discord room, check the link in the description below.